Okay. Oh, got it. Got it. There we are. Let me know if Gary Barnett shows up.
He's here.
He's here?
Yeah,
he's here, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Oh, great.
I think most
Thank
of his
you.
team is here too. So.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we'll start in about 2.5 minutes. Okay, we'll start. Everybody can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Zoning and Development Committee meeting for January. Before we get started, I will hand it over to Zachary Gloss, who will explain to you how to raise your hands and ask questions or make a comment. Zachary?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. If this is your first time joining us, everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting except for committee co-chairs, Elizabeth Ashby, unfortunately Anthony Cohn is not able to make it, and the presenters. Following the presentation, co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon, pressing raise hand, not the wave or thumbs up buttons. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you are on the phone, it is *9 to raise hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chats. If you have an older version of Zoom, you will need to go to the participant section where you will find the raise hand feature there. Please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. Chat me, I'm here for support.
Okay, thank you very much. the first item on the agenda is Extel's proposal for First Avenue between 79th and 80th Street. We're very grateful to them to come here and tell us about this proposal. So please, whichever Extel person wants to start, we will unmute you.
So Gary and your team, you guys can start unmuting as we.
I think Gary's going to do an introduction.
Gary, just look for a button at the bottom of your screen to say unmute.
Is Gary Barnett here to be unmuted?
There he is. So just look for an unmute button at the bottom of your screen.
Hi, this is Chris Ernst from Perkins Eastman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're just waiting on Gary to unmute.
May I share my screen?
If you would like, before he shares any remarks. Oh, try that one more time. You unmuted and muted again very quickly, Gary. There you go.
Yeah. So then you don't need me on the phone if I unmute.
You're very quiet, so you may want to get closer to your microphone.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can, Gary.
Okay, great. So thank you everybody for getting on for this hearing and for this opportunity to give you a presentation of what we're planning to go on a go forward basis. We think we have a very beautiful building that will fit in. It's a medical building. I think we've already announced that we have a wonderful tenant. HSS will be taking half the building, and we will hopefully be able to find some tenants or users for the other half. The project is completely as of right, and we'd like to present it to the board and hear of any questions or concerns that we can address, and hopefully be able to move forward together in a good cooperative spirit. So thank you very much. I think we're going to turn it over to Perkins Eastman to actually go through the property and building presentation, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Gary. My name's Carl Ordeman. I'm a registered architect in New York as well as other states. I'm senior partner at Perkins Eastman here in New York, where we're headquartered. I'm a former 78th Street dweller and 80th Street, so I know the neighborhood. Chris, if you'd move on to the next slide. A little bit of background on the building itself. We're in what we might call the design development phase, although we might be going out for early foundations. I guess you all know the location. It's on First Avenue on the east side of the street between 79th and 80th. And the building footprint is a little bit more than 20,000 square feet. The zoning, as you all know, is C19 in part, and also C1-5 R10A. It's a combination site. The use, as Gary has envisioned it, is for primarily ambulatory care, a community facility. The prime tenant reflects that. Also, there's a smattering of retail on the ground floor and below grade. The total gross square foot of the building is about 722,000 square feet. Again, everything here is as of right. The building at its tallest part, which is a narrow board you see in the foreground now in this image, is 29 stories. The major bulk of the building stops at the 16th floor, which you see that step back. That's along 79th Street. The uses themselves within the building, the ambulatory care is 345,000 square feet. And that encompasses everything from floors 2 to 28, the 29th floor being a mechanical space. The retail, which is partially on the first floor and partially on below grade, is 27,000 square feet. The anchor tenant, we're proud to say, is also a neighborhood hospital. It's the Hospital for Special Surgery. There'll be no overnight stays here. This is only for ambulatory care. People come in a day and leave the same day. The timeline for the project, we're looking to break ground in the spring, May, June, and we're looking to complete the project in the third quarter of 2024. We have got a full team on board and we're plowing ahead. Extel, as you know, is a developer all over the east side, and you're well familiar with their quality of work. They returned the construction management firm of Lend-Lease, who is actively working with us. Perkins Eastman, fairly well known, one of the largest architectural firms in New York, is teamed up with structural engineering with WSP, MEP engineering with ICOR, vertical transportation with John Van Duzen Associates, and the civil engineer is Philip Habib, who's also quite involved with traffic. Taking a closer look at the building, this view that you're looking at is from looking northeast. That bold facade standing forward is actually 79th Street, and the piece setting back along First Avenue is the combination of buildings as it steps back and forward. It's following, as of right, all the setback requirements for the project on this lot. We're seeking no variances. And at the 16th floor, you'll see it step back from First Avenue substantially. There's a mechanical space on top of that. And then the rest of the tower, which gets fairly small, will go up to the 28th floor, and the 29th floor is a mechanical space. We've tried our best to blend in with the community. You see the heights are relative. Well, I'll come back to the heights. Go back one more, Chris, I'm sorry. The materials that we're using are hopefully integrated into a light and dark combination that our adjoining buildings are utilizing. In this section through First Avenue, we are just short of a taller building to the south of us, and we're a little bit above the building to the north of us. And on First Avenue, you can see some of the elevation being defined, and we're breaking up the mass of the building by cutting in recesses at its base. Let's take a closer look at next slide. This is the corner on 79th Street and First Avenue. The base of the building is primarily granite with storefront, and the high quality storefront being delivered for the retail on this corner and further down the block. We'll get to that. The granite is a dark granite and the glazing is clear. It's the higher quality of what you might see along First Avenue. As you go up the building, we're using a metal panel to replicate limestone in its coloration, but make it more easier to clean. And between the limestone, we have glazed panels indicating the floors are spandrel glass. It's by this large overgrid, we're reducing some of the scale of the building to make it more humane and touchable, if we can use that phrase. Next image. We have two entrances on First Avenue. The first one you see in the foreground, that is for the tenant to be determined. The other half of the building is yet to be marketed, but will be for ambulatory care, medical offices, things like that. The second entrance, a little further on, is the HSS entrance, Hospital for Special Surgery. If you're familiar with their facilities over on York, you'll know that they have what might be called the porte cochere, a drive-through area. This is that entrance into that for the pedestrians, and around the corner, you'll be able to bring your ambulatory patients in and drop them off undercover. And that's the formal entry there in the background, the other side of that column. The daylight coming in on the right comes in from First Avenue. The blue vehicle coming on the left comes in from 80th Street. And this is the building looking from the north, looking south, the long facade along First Avenue. Again, we're breaking up the massing with our setbacks, with the coloration materials. And the building in the foreground is the narrower medical office space up on top. That's it in general. And we're open to questions.
Just a reminder for everybody, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, look for the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen where you'll find the raise hand button. Press that and press it only once and your hand will go up, and our co-chair Elizabeth will be able to see you.
We'll first go to the public if they have any questions. So let's see who in the public has signed up.
You have a person named Wendy. And then Neil, and then Mona and Jerry.
I apologize, I can't find. Is it Wendy? Who's the first?
Yes, go ahead, Wendy. You can unmute. You're unmuted.
Okay. The first member of the public is Wendy, and we're waiting for your question, comment.
Wendy, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you. Do you want to go to the next person, Neil, since we can't hear Wendy? Elizabeth? Let's do that. Neil, you can unmute.
Okay.
Mona and Jerry, have we got a customer yet?
Yeah, this is
have,
Neil. You can hear me. All right. So
identify yourself if you don't mind.
this is Neil Mesnick. I live on 80th and First. The building is a monstrosity. It does not fit in. The materials do not fit in with the area. There's a church next door. I have no idea what that entrance from 80th Street into that carport is going to do to traffic. I don't know why it wasn't from 79th Street where there's a wider street. There's just nothing right with this building and the project. It's so much worse than anybody could have ever thought. I don't see how they could say this in good faith that it fits in the community.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Mona and Jerry.
Hi, this is Jerry Gartman. I live on 79th Street. I understand about the carport and drop-off. Does the building provide any parking for day patients?
No, there is no parking being provided here. There is obviously a parking garage across the street, but
that's going to be a big problem.
Okay, we'll certainly see what the parking situation is done. I don't know if we did a parking survey yet or not, but that's certainly something we're going to look into.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Zoom user.
Zoom user, just please identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Margaret Lehman. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Would you please speak in more detail to the design of the car entrance that is designed and provided for off of First Avenue and 80th Street, specifically what traffic density Extel has planned to control and monitor? What will there be in order to protect the safety from pedestrian injury? That's the first part of my question. To discuss that. Discuss in more detail that car entranceway. How many cars it is designed to hold, and what controls and daily monitoring will Extel, as the owner of the building, either require of HSS or on its own require? And then part two of my question, which also deals with density, but of a different type, this time neighborhood pedestrian density, in this case regarding the development, what number of patients does HSS project to be taking advantage of the ambulatory care for its roughly 50% of this building? We know that's not even including the other 50% and the tenants. So rather than, and I'm assuming that this has been discussed with HSS, so rather than perhaps suggest that you're not sure, I'd like to know, and I think probably everyone on this call, as well as all of our neighborhood, would like to know, because at least the projected car density / the control and monitoring, and the projected patient density, because that had to have influenced the design and size of the two entrances that you describe on First Avenue.
Well, I'll turn it over to
Could you speak up a little bit? I had trouble even hearing your presentation. Maybe come a little closer to your iPad. That would be great.
Okay. I'll turn that over to Perkins and Eastman soon, but one of the very important aspects for HSS, because it's an orthopedic and rheumatism type hospital and treatment center, is obviously to have access for disabled people, for people who are in wheelchairs, people.
I get that. Forgive me for interrupting. I get that.
Let me continue.
Yeah,
to finish,
I get that. I just
Let
like
me
you to
continue.
speak to my questions, because we're.
Let me continue to finish, okay? I gave you the courtesy of waiting for you. Let me finish. So that was something that was very important to them, to be able to have accessibility to them. As well, this is a means of taking the cars off the street and being able to take them internal so that they can drop off. These are not meant to be parking spaces. This is just for the purpose of dropping off patients or picking up patients and moving on. In terms of the safety of the access and interaction with the sidewalk, of course, we're going to do all of the safety requirements that are needed by code. Perkins Eastman, perhaps you want to speak a little bit to that, but certainly there'll be full precautions taken, as there are many Fort Cochere type drop-offs in the city that are taken to make certain that there is no injuries as a result of it.
I will say that working with HSS and their estimates for the number of people accessing the building through the drop-off area, they were talking the neighborhood 2, 3, 4 at the most cars. And they said oftentimes this will be an empty space, but there will be sometimes probably in the morning when people are coming in and late in the afternoon after they're being discharged. We've provided space for at least 4 cars in this roundabout. We've sized it based on the data that HSS has given us. We have a textured walk here, which pedestrians could feel underfoot a difference when you're traversing from what we see as the dark to the lighter colored area. The doors leading into the building themselves are automatic, so someone in a wheelchair or in a stroller, a push stroller would be not encumbered with trying to open the door at the same time. Cars would come in one direction and leave in one direction. It's not like a roadway where people can run. People slow down in these situations. We've worked very closely with a fellow by the name of Philip Habib, who's one of the city's leading traffic consultants. He's helped us every step of the way. This has been a well-explored drop-off area for them. The projections we have are based upon what HSS has given us, And I suspect it relates back to what their experiences are over at their main facility. We're very concerned about pedestrian safety, obviously, for the benefit of the entire community as well as the users. We architects are concerned with those things. I think I've got your answer to the number of cars we anticipate. We have this well lit, well, there would be more signage, obviously. But it's something that works well for those who need this facility to help them in their lives.
Thanks, I appreciate it. With due respect,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like a little more clarity and detail. To swing back to the first speaker, there wasn't a hint of lack of empathy for orthopedic problems and concerns at all, and no criticism of the design, simply questions about the design. Thanks, you've given me a little bit of an idea about the cars. You said you're looking for 3 or 4 in the morning, or it's capable, I think you said, of 3 and 4 at a time.
Yes, it is, but we don't anticipate that being the case in the normal course of affairs.
And that's what I'm looking for. You said HSS has its predictions. We'd appreciate on this presentation, having waited for this for close to a decade, we'd appreciate some specific numbers in terms of what HSS projects with regard to the number of cars and with regard to the number of patients, only insofar as our densities are concerned. Whoever the first speaker was, I don't know if that was Mr. Barnett or someone else, or you, sir, we just would like some specifics with a massive development. The questions arise that all of us who are so familiar with neighborhood developments appreciate answered, whether they're density concerns or others. So if you could give us some specific numbers, we could move on.
I think he's got the point of your question.
Thank you. We'll see what we can come back with. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you feel you've answered that? And we'll go on to the next questioner.
Yes. Thank you.
The next person is Susan Komansky. And please make it succinct.
Sure. I live at 340 East 80th Street on the First Avenue side, directly across from the site. And my question is, do you have any renderings that could give us some idea of how the design of the building is going to impact the light that is, or what kind of shadows it's going to create in on our building across the street? I'd like to see a little more, and it's a little bit difficult to tell. Clearly you've thinned out around the tower, but I'm just curious to see how that's going to impact us.
Well, we'll check if we have any shadow studies here. I would want to say one thing, that when we're looking at the site, and as many of you know, we've taken many, many years to assemble it. It's been a long slog. We had a choice between doing a condo building, which, as you probably know, is sprouting all over the Upper East Side now in a major way, or doing potentially something else. And if we had done a condo building, you would be looking at a much taller as of right building than this is. If you look at what we have, the building is relatively short, other than a very small tower portion. That tower portion only encumbers, I think, about 20 to 25% of the airspace. So it's probably as least, in terms of providing shadows or encumbering anything, it's probably the least significant type of building that we could be building in this neighborhood. I thought it would be welcomed as a result of that, but this is the route that we did choose to go down, rather than do yet another condo building.
Yeah, anything that you could, I'm sorry, just to interrupt with a little bit more kind of specificity. I get the rendering of the building as it stands kind of in isolation, But if you had anything that would show maybe like an overhead view where it shows, this portion of the building is this high and it's kind of the tall part of it, but not just, I mean, the elevation is helpful, but also from overhead, how it lines up with the buildings surrounding it across the street. And this is a selfish question on my part because I live on the north corner of 340 East 80th Street. So I'm just curious to see how this is going to impact me.
We understand. We'll see if we have any shadow studies that we can share with you, and for how long those shadows would be in any one particular place.
Yeah, and if you have any dimensions that say, the linear frontage of that section that's tall is this long, that would really be helpful.
Yeah, we can get you that. Because of the slenderness of the tower, it's not going to be significant for any period of time. I think the tower is only about 60 feet, 50 or 60 feet wide.
Yeah, it's a fairly small footprint. If you see in these sections that the bulk of the building is 16 floors and below, your building, I assume, is the one to the left. I think that's your home, and you're on the north side. The north side will always be in shadow.
Southwest corner. Southwest
corner. Okay.
Directly across the street.
But the sun, of course, travels in a east to west southerly route.
Right.
So nothing will be impacted on the south side of 79th Street. There'll be some minor shadows from that.
So on the south side of 80th, I think.
South side of 80th.
I am on the southwest corner of 80th Street, directly across from the site. I am just trying to understand. I am not complaining. I just want to understand kind of what I'm in for. Okay. I have outdoor space, which is important to me. I just want to understand, are my plants going to grow or not? What am I in for? I'm bracing myself. Okay. So anything you can do that depicts, kind of an aerial view that shows this section of the building, the tall section of the building runs to this point in the street, or whatever. Like
perhaps a Google map might help. Yeah.
Yeah, it would, anything you can show would be helpful. We've been waiting for this for a long time. I'd like to understand what's going up and how it's going to affect us.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, you have somebody named Ron Ryder.
Who?
Hello.
Ron Ryder is the next one.
Yes,
Yes,
he's unmuted.
this is Ron Ryder. Can you hear me? Great. Hi, I live at 404 East 80th, so probably the building closest to the actual plot of land being developed is directly connected to it. It's a 5-story walk-up building. Unfortunately, I'm bound in by phone, but I heard all the details. I'm just curious.
I can't hear
Kind of about
what you're
one thing.
I'm having a hard time hearing his comments.
Can you hear me okay now?
Oh.
That was better, Ron.
Yeah, I'm just asking about the actual construction of the building, the timing of it. I know it starts in the spring, but basis, I'm sure people are concerned about the quality of life, right? So is there construction on weekends planned? What hours of the day? Things like that.
Well, we think it's about a 2.5 year time frame, plus minus, to build the building. Certainly, the majority of the building. I'm not talking about interior fit outs, but to actually build the building, we think it's about a 2.5 year time frame on average.
Right, but then hours of construction during the day, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in compliance with city guidelines. Anything, any color you can provide there? Am I going to be hearing jackhammers at midnight across the street, for example?
Yep. So I think we give you detailed breakdowns of that. That's of the construction schedule as soon as we have it. But it's going to fit in, of course, with all of the city rules and guidelines, and we're going to try and be cognizant of the fact that it is a residential neighborhood.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Now next to Jory's iPhone.
Jory, if you'll just identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Jory Schwartz. I'm a resident in the area. Two questions. One is, what is the setback on the First Avenue side and the East 80th side of the tower portion as per that rendering there approximately, as opposed to right on the streets?
The setback on 79th Street, the major setback is on the 16th floor. The setback, the first setback, there are two major setbacks on 80th Street. The first one is 5 floors up, and then the next one's another 4 floors up.
Right, but what is the actual dimension of it approximately? Is it 10 feet, 15 feet?
About
From First Avenue, the setback is 15 feet. And then from 80th Street, the first setback is 20 feet and the second setback is another 20 feet. So the tower is 40 feet back from 80th Street.
Okay, and two other questions. One is in the elevation, the elevation sheet that you guys show, it looks like it's not, it doesn't look like on the east elevation, it's an accurate representation of the building to the north, meaning the Gracie Muse building. How is this building taller than the Gracie Muse tower? Because that's actually a taller building conceivably than this one.
I think that's something we could check.
Yeah, it's showing as if the new building is taller than that. So if it's a 28-story building, the Gracie Muse building is about 36 floors.
Oh.
So I think that's not an accurate drawing on there. The west elevation looks more accurate.
It's possible, Jory, but keep in mind that these are two different floors, okay? So we like to be completely transparent. Residential floors typically are not as tall. I mean, nowadays you see some very tall residential floors, but that building was built quite a while ago. Those floor heights would not be nearly as high as office flights. Modern office buildings need to have quite a bit of extra height for all of the mechanical requirements and fresh air and everything else. So,
I see. So this building is substantially taller than the Gracie Muse building, which is a very tall building to begin with.
Well, it's possible that this building is taller. This building is about 400 feet tall. I think the other building is probably about maybe around 400, maybe 360. I'm not sure what it would be. I imagine it would be at least 360, given that it's 36 floors. Maybe it'd be 370, but this might be, 40 feet, 30 or 40 feet taller. So not a lot taller. And keep in mind that the tower, which starts at the 16th floor, as I say, is only 60 feet out of 200 feet. So that's really not a very imposing presence.
Okay. And my last comment or question was that going back to the the driveway on East 80th, it's clear that the reason this was put there was because of the bus lanes on 79th and also on First Avenue. But I think it's important to note that the Gracie Muse building has an interior driveway on 80th that goes over to 81st. So that's one area where there is a lot of car traffic. Secondly, there's commonly buses stopping for the express bus, the select bus service, where you see accidents on a pretty frequent basis because people are trying to turn onto 80th and buses are parked right there. And that's pretty common. And you also have the Cadman School on the block on 80th between First and York. So your transportation advisors should probably consider the fact that you may have much more than what HSS is considering in terms of 3 to 4 vehicles per hour or something like that. And it could create a substantial amount of congestion on the street and make it very dangerous for pedestrians. I understand why it's been put there, but I also understand that HSS has a similar kind of drive-through area at their other facility between 71st and 70th. And that makes a lot of sense there because there's not a lot of foot traffic, but this is a very different area. And it should seriously be considered whether this is a good thing. I understand why they want it, but I think it's something that somebody should really take serious note of, because this is not probably going to play out as well as everybody thinks, especially if you have taxi cabs and other people who are not familiar with the area going onto a side street.
It's certainly a good point. All of these are good issues. But keep in mind again that they're saying, you know, four cars, the cars are there really just to pick up and drop off. So they're not going to be there for a long time. We are of course aware of the garage across the street and the drive-through, but it's not a heavily pedestrianized street on 80th. Obviously, First Avenue and 79th Street are, and as you say, we never, you know, would have considered a curb cut there. So yeah, all of these are very good issues raised. We're certainly going to take them into account, the safety and potential density here. We think that this works in consultation with some of the best traffic experts, but it's a good point, and we're going to keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Helen Hook.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. We live at 333 right across the street. And I have to say, we were happy to hear it was HSS and not some, you know, crazy nightmare condo building. And I have a couple of questions, comments. One is, what's going to happen with the select bus service right in front here that's on 79th? And the other one is, you know, we all, myself included, go to doctors, and I see people drive their family members to drop them off, and then they wait. And where are these people supposed to wait? I mean, it's kind of, I can't believe you don't have parking. This 4 cars is like ridiculous. You know, there's going to be a lot of people waiting for their family members, ambulatory. You're saying these people can't walk, and, you know, they're going to wait for them. And you really need to consider parking for this situation. And the other question is, your 16th floor equals what in terms of our building's 16th floor? Are you really 18, or what's your real 16 mean?
In terms of the height, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what the height of the floors on your building are, but this height is, the 16th floor here is certainly taller than the 16th floor across the street. So this would probably be the equivalent to something in the low 20s is my guess, but we can get you exact elevations, and you can kind of figure it out with Google as to what it translates out to. In terms of the parking, this, you know, I think you're absolutely making good points. People are not going to be allowed to in that drive-through to wait. There's going to be no waiting allowed there. But nevertheless, you could be right that people will be driving family members, and will they wait somewhere in the neighborhood and just sit in the car for an hour or 2 hours? I don't know, or 3 hours, or more than likely they're going to look to park.
There's no place to wait. I'm telling you, I already have to double, triple park.
We agree. No place to wait, and they shouldn't wait. So one thing I think that we'll do sooner than later, I don't know if we've done it yet, is to do a parking survey. I think we did it, but we'll do a parking survey to see what the capacity of the available parking lots are during the day. One good thing to keep in mind is that this place vacates, you know, in the late afternoon, and that's it. We're not going to be seeing people competing for people who come home after work and need to park or something like that. So it's not a residential building. It empties out. It's quiet in the evening. So that's a good part of it. If we haven't done a parking survey yet, we certainly will do one now and attempt to make sure that there's sufficient parking for HSS and whoever else comes into the building.
And the bus stop?
Bus stop, we got to look into. I don't know. Has anyone looked into that yet? Carl, anyone? Have we done?
I think it's remaining in place. We're looking for people to gain access to the medical facility by Uber, by cab, by bus, by pedestrian, by family dropping them off. Any way we can access the people who are barely ambulatory.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you. I just want to say, somebody who lives there in New York and goes to NYU Langone and different medical facilities, pretty much all of them have taken the parking situation into consideration. And I appreciate that beautiful circle that you guys have, plotted out. But I really hope you will evaluate the parking, because as somebody who lives there without, looking for parking, there's not a lot of parking there.
Okay,
So
good
you need,
point. Thank you very much.
you really need to figure that out.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Kenneth Hill.
Kenneth?
Yeah. How you doing? My name is Kenneth Hill. I live across the street at 340 East 80th, and I'm on the 17th floor. So there's two questions that I have. One is, where is the construction crane and the construction elevators going to be placed during the construction period? And then the other one is, you said that there's a mechanical space on the 16th floor, which means that there's probably exhaust fans, air handling units, rooftop units. Is that all enclosed? And has anybody done like a sound survey that's going to happen when all this equipment keeps on running over and over and over and over again?
I will say that the logistics plan by the construction manager has not been established yet for where the construction crane will go. The common trends nowadays are right in the center of the site. With regards to the 16th floor mechanical space, it is on the other side of the smaller tower. You can see a little on this image, right where the arrow is, that's that mechanical space. Mechanical space handles pumps and other requirements, and we have an acoustical engineer who has given us and our mechanical engineers directions on how to attenuate the sound. Obviously, we're going to have patients beneath it and directly adjacent to it, which have taken concerns into how we baffle that noise. It is not envisioned as a noisy event.
Okay, yeah, because I live on the 17th floor and I'm pretty much almost directly across the street. I just don't want all that noise coming.
Yeah,
right
no, I
into-
appreciate that. You're on 80th though. You've got a building blocking you from that.
No,
16th floor mechanical.
I'm on First Avenue, and I have outdoor space and I stare right at the building.
I don't think you'll have any problems with the 16th floor mechanical space at this project.
Okay, thank you very much for the answers.
Yep.
Thank you. Then I think the next one is Wendy that we couldn't get before.
She's back.
Wendy, go ahead and try to unmute again.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can.
I can.
Yes. I don't know if I'm being heard.
Go ahead.
Yes, you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, my question was answered already, but it was about the bus stop because that's basically how I get around the Upper East Side. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be too badly inconvenienced while construction was going on.
Do we have any information on the First Avenue bus stop, if that's going to be moved further north on a temporary basis or across the street on a temporary basis, guys? Do we know?
I don't have it. Go ahead.
Hi. So this is Tiago. Yes. So the bus stops are intended to be moved during the period of construction. They'll be temporarily moved one block over, both on 79th Street and on First Avenue. And then once the construction is completed, they will be brought back to the current locations. That's the current plan that has been discussed with MTA and New York Transit.
When you say one block, you mean one block north on First Avenue and one block west on 79th?
It's across the street.
Right. All right, yeah. So it's in front of our building. Okay. I'm at 333. So.
Yes, it'll be in front of you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Megan S.
Yes, hello. I live at 404 East 80th Street, so I'll be your neighbor directly next door. And I see all of these beautiful windows. I have the back lot with the back patio, and I'm just wondering if... windows on the first floor or second floor. So just basically the other side of this rendering. I don't know if you have anything there, just so I can figure out sort of privacy options for my own self.
We don't have an elevation for the eastern exposure in this presentation package, but I will recall what Gary just said in the aspect that this is mostly a 9 to 5 operation. So when you get home, you'll find the building gone pretty quiet and dark.
This is Chris Ernst from Perkins Eastman. We also don't have any windows on the first floor. I think was where you said you lived. So
yeah,
there wouldn't be any windows directly under your yard. There would be windows on the floors above that might be able to look down once you get above a certain height, but nothing at the ground floor facing the rear yards to the east.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, in COVID, I'm home all day, so there isn't really a coming home, but I appreciate the 9 to 5 aspect of it. Just curious, if you have anything you can share, it would be helpful so I can get some, like, you know, umbrellas or whatnot. I appreciate
Chris, I think that, you know, due to the lot line window conditions, there are no windows for the first 60 or 80 feet, right?
There are some, but definitely nothing on the floor.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Rachel F.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about how the construction will affect the church, and also there's a meeting space between the church and the construction site, a basement area.
The church will be protected from anything going on next to it and will remain intact, as well as the meeting space, which is what we call an out parcel.
So the meeting space will be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next is Christine Offerman. And anybody who has questions that have already been answered, I hope you're satisfied with that. Anyway, Christine Offerman.
Hi, thank you. I'm interested in the timeline. Can you confirm the current estimated start date? And also, if you don't have that set quite yet, when or where we can go to look for the announcement of what the start date would be?
The start date is envisioned with a foundation permit, which we hope to achieve in the next 6 months, and that would launch the effort. You would see a notice with the Department of Buildings.
Okay.
Approval. Let me assure you that Extel is eager to not just start the project, but to do it in the most expeditious yet efficient and safe manner as possible.
And so where would there be like a notice posted with the start date? How would we find out that information?
You'd have to check in with the Department of Buildings websites.
Okay.
We will notify the community board prior to that, and certainly they'll send it around. Of course, we're not. We'll be in contact with the community board. They will certainly be letting us know their concerns, and will be coordinating with us various matters regarding construction times, safety things. So that will certainly be posted by the community board, I'm sure.
And I think earlier you said right now your estimate is that the foundation construction would start in May or June. Is that your most up-to-date info?
We're hoping for second quarter. Who knows?
Okay. Nope. Got it. Thank you.
The next is Dee Robinson.
And then Betty Cooper Wallace.
Hello.
Yes, Dee, please identify
Yes,
yourself.
your question.
Hi, my name's Dorothy Robinson. I live in the 340 East 80th Street building. 2 quick questions. One, I'm actually out of town right now, but I was wondering, I understand this is being recorded. Will we be able to get information on how we can listen to this again and maybe share it with some of our neighbors who are not on this call right now. And my other question was, earlier on, someone had asked, I think also for my building, kind of what the dimensions would be as far as the width of that larger tower, because I'm on the, like I said, the 340th Street side. I'm on the J line, so I'm kind of curious to know whether or not that tower is going to be right in front of me or not. So how would that information, would we be able to get that information in the future?
I think we can tell you that right now. I believe it's about 60 feet along First Avenue wide. Carl, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and probably what, about 70 to 80 feet deep?
Yeah, it's about 60 by 80. And it
So
doesn't
80
start until the 16th floor, of course, but
Okay, so it would be 8 feet from the
Along
80th Street.
Along 80.
well, we have a setback along.
It's set back.
Right. So you've got two setbacks we're looking at. If you go back to that section, Chris, that we had,
It's set back 35 feet.
you can see the setbacks that we're looking at. That's the 80th Street side. Go ahead, Robert. Robert, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
Robert, you muted yourself.
Yes, the tower is set back 40 feet from 80th Street and 15 feet from First Avenue. And the tower dimensions themselves are 60 feet, and that would be along First Avenue, and then 85 feet along 80th Street. So it's a rather slender tower.
Okay, and I guess the answer to my other question, which was, how would we be able to, again, listen to this recording in future or share it with our neighbors? Will
Yeah, I
we
can
be able
answer
to get
that.
a link?
I can answer that question. It's actually available on our YouTube, our Facebook, our Twitter, and our website. If you go to the meeting page that you signed into for tonight's meeting, you'll find the video there. You can also find it on our YouTube and our Facebook and our Twitter.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, the next speaker is Betty Cooper Wallerstein.
Hello, thank you very much. I guess you can hear me. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
I want to thank all of you who came. I think it's wonderful that you're offering all this information. It's extremely helpful. And I thank you very much for the information I've heard so far. I have a couple of questions. First of all, as president of the Neighborhood Association, we were interested originally when you started to work at the site. We tried to see if we could not get, we have two buses that stop on First Avenue. One stops near the corner, and the other one, which is an express, stops closer to the 80th Street. We tried to get them a block before, but it didn't work because of the nature of the bank and with its walk up, and the other was a florist. There is no way that we can have all the seniors and all the people who use that bus, for that bus to be put a block past where it is. It really, I was very happy to hear that 79th Street at First Avenue, which is a very, very busy place to cross the street, many people crossing all the time, that there was not going to be anything in the way there of people needing to cross. But certainly we should not have to replace two buses for that amount of time. We have to try to find another way that we can do it, because it's going to inconvenience too many people. There are people who are getting on the bus constantly with walkers. We've had accidents on the 79th Street bus, which drops people off at Madison Avenue, and they have to walk 2 blocks, and it hasn't been working. So let's see what we might be able to do so that we do not have to replace the buses. They make 2 stops, and they should be able to make one stop on First Avenue, so that either bus would be stopping at that stop. They don't come at the same time anyway. So that's very important to look into and see whatever you could do. Secondly, you have a wonderful, wonderful hospital that's coming in. Hospital for Special Surgery is really special. But I have to ask, and I will check, of course, with the hospital as well, because they have a unique setup. They are set up on 71st Street and 70th, and where people come in right from the drive, people who are bringing people to go to the hospital. They've also added an overhead over the drive. And so they really have a lot of space there for people who are coming in cars. And I think that we need to look and see so that what they are going to be doing at 79th, 80th, and 1st should not require all of those cars, because you're going to have a very difficult time. There are 80th Street is very, very busy. And it's going to be very difficult. So it's something to look into now to see what can be done. The city's idea to not have parking in all of the buildings that came up in the last 10 years was not a great idea, because people are going to need their cars, and they do have them, and every single one of the parking lots in our area is full. So I would like for you to very much look into that part of what we can do. And I thank you for this opportunity. I'm calling in, so I will try also to get some of the pictures so that I will get it from the community board so that we can see. But I certainly thank you for this opportunity you've given all of us. And if we have other questions later, to whom should we address those questions? Hello? Hello?
Yeah.
Did I get cut off or what?
No, Betty.
Okay. Sorry. You had to think about. I asked you a question. You had to think about it, but I thought I got disconnected.
No. I had to get on
Thank
mute.
you.
So, okay, fine. So look, I remember you, Betty. I think from like 10 years ago, the last time I was at a presentation at this community board, maybe longer than that.
Was what? Was that the one at Chapin? Is that the one at Chapin School?
I think that's it. I think that's
yes.
Look, in terms of getting any more questions, sure, we're happy to have you submit them to the community board, and they'll send it on to us, and we'll see what we can do to respond. Parking, we've talked about. We're definitely going to look into that. And on the bus stop, that's something that we're happy to have your input. And
no, it's extremely important that we do something about, make sure that we protect it now.
Right. So we will definitely put that input, Tiago. Let's keep this in mind as we have further discussions with the MTA and with the buildings department as to what happens with these bus stops, whether it's possible to only move one, and so both buses could use the other one at different times. A little hard to see.
But you see, the people in the neighborhood are going to use both of them. People will use both of them.
Right.
But if we have to change one, the problem's going to be the next block too, which has stuff that's outside. But anyway, it's something that we have to do ahead of time that we did not do before, and that's why we got pretty stuck. Because the block before was not available, and the block after is going to be very crowded too. So thank you. We'll try to see what can be done. Thank you very much.
Miss Cooper-Wallerstein, this is Michael Rawlings from Hospital for Special Surgery, and maybe I can just answer a question or two that you had concerning the drop off. So First of all, this is an outpatient facility that specializes in rheumatology and arthritis. We plan to have, pre-surgical screening there, radiology, and imaging, doctors' offices. Our volume projected when this is fully up and running is about 150 patients a day, or 40,000 visits a year. And, we're projecting, 3 or 4 cars at a time at the maximum, pulling into the motor court and dropping off and picking up patients. The majority of our outpatients use public transportation and use, New York City taxi and Uber, as opposed to our inpatients, which, have gone through surgery already and are being discharged and being picked up by family members. It's a very different type of patient that will be using this. And I think we share your concerns about the subway, the bus stops, because a lot of our patients and the majority of our staff will be commuting to this facility, both from across town on 79th Street. So having that 79th and First Avenue stop is vitally important, as well as coming up in downtown coming uptown on First Avenue. And this is why it makes a great location, and why, we're happy to be, the anchor tenant with Gary in this building.
One other quick thing on the parking side is that the parking is really kind of off hours. During the day, there probably will be some additional vacates in the parking spaces as people take their cars out in the parking garages. And remember, these people are not staying overnight. Employees are not staying overnight, so you're not going to see that burden on the
No, but I'm not concerned about the evening. I'm concerned about the buses.
Right.
The ones that are picking up people who need to have that service. I've just blocked on the name, but there are people, elderly people, and people who aren't walking, who have the bus service. You know what I'm talking about, and that's during the day, and they will drop them off at the different hospitals as they do with yours too.
Right.
So these are the same hours.
The buses are coming back, Betty. This is just a temporary move. On a permanent basis, the buses will still be right where they are today. That's what I'm being told. Same thing on 79th Street. So this is really, we're only talking about on a temporary basis right now. Once the facility's open, everything will be back to where it is.
We will certainly look for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now, we've into our second hour now, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more members of the public. And I think we'll cut it off after 4. And I would ask you to be succinct on your questions. And very great. This is very important, and I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but we haven't even got to the board yet. So please make it brief. The next one is Margaret Lehman.
You're on mute.
Margaret, you're able to unmute. Look at the bottom of your screen.
How deep how deep will you be digging for the foundation, given the size of the development, and what procedures have been put into the construction plans for the significant vibration that's going to occur both to the surrounding buildings as well as the nearby buildings, because the vibration is going to be fairly significant and widespread.
We're excavating for 2 basements for the foundation. We have had soil borings and more will be coming. The civil engineers have not encountered any major impediments where we have modified some of the basement levels to avoid any heavy rock penetrations. I'm not sure when you say vibrations, you mean the demolition of material being brought out of the hole, I assume. It is not a long-term event. It is something that will take place in the very beginning and have an end to it. As to the adjoining buildings, we'll be monitoring conditions at the church next door and the adjoining building, but we don't see the demolition traveling across either First Avenue or the 2 side streets.
You have Carol Schusterman next.
Yes, Carol Schusterman. And then the following to be ready, Sarah Steerer and Leah Handlin. And I think that's the end of the public participation.
Okay. I would also like to express my concern about not only the bus stops and people being dropped off, but also I live in 340 East 80th. There are a few spots along First Avenue between 79th and 80th and 80th and 81st. And on the other end, on the next block, 81st Street, 80th to 81st Street, where the Muse building is, where people can park. There's meters. Now, we have people in the neighborhood that require or have New York City handicap permits to be able to park in these spots and to be able to get around to their appointments. I happen to be one of them. I'm not the only one. And it seems to me that this is going to be that they're going to take away this parking for people like myself. I think there should be some area within the scope of our co-op where there should be some handicap spots where it says only for New York City handicap permits, so that people like myself can get a spot. And I would also like to express that people, you have to remember that this is such a residential area. There's always delivery trucks pulling up on First Avenue. We have the sanitation that comes to take out all the garbage from our co-op, 333 and 340, right on First Avenue. We have all kinds of delivery trucks. We have FedEx, we have UPS. I mean, it's a horror to try to get up First Avenue during the day. It gets better at night, but it's very bad during the day. And I think I don't want to be negative, but I think you're underestimating what this situation is going to really turn out to be with having people dropped off in front of the hospital. And a lot of people that will use hospital for special surgery will be coming from the suburbs. I mean, people come there from all over, not just Manhattan, and they drive in, and they're not going to have anywhere to park. And the meter maids will have a blast just ticketing everybody. I think something has to be done by hospital for special surgery to put in a garage. I really do. For people that are going to special surgery, there should be a garage. It's going to be very, very, very congested. It's already dangerous to cross between you and me. People have been hit. One of my friends was run over on First Avenue, had a broken leg. You have the bike lanes. It is just that it's a nightmare. It really is. you have to see it during the day to see what goes on. So we have legitimate concerns about the congestion and the parking and the bus stops for people.
Thank you.
So legitimate concerns, and taking this away from people who already live here and pay taxes is just, it's not viable. It's not good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the next speaker is Leah Hanlon.
You skipped Sarah.
Oh, Sarah Steer. Oh.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I live in 404 East 80th, and I actually have a car here, and we do a lot of street parking. We usually can always find a spot on 80th Street. I was just wondering, how much of the side of the street parking will be taken away because of this? I know obviously like that little turnaround to pull in, but will any other parts of the street across the street or kind of further along also be reserved or no longer able to street park?
We're not impacting street parking. I'm not sure how to answer that other than that.
Only because I know other hospitals in the area, like across the street, you're not allowed to park. Like it's reserved for like hospital vehicles, or like certain times of day, you're not allowed to park within a certain range.
I understand that, Sarah, but this is a different facility. This is a outpatient clinic space, outpatient care center, not a hospital use. It's more doctors' offices, ambulatory patients coming to a doctor's office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Leah Hanlon, and that is the end of the public speakers.
Hi, thank you. I'll be brief. What are the actual real chances of your redesigning this building to include a parking garage?
No chance. And we don't think actually that that it's necessary based on the uses that we see. The drop-off should be sufficient based on the numbers that we're seeing from HSS. It shouldn't be too heavy a burden, but again, I think we've heard a lot about parking, more than we thought we'd hear about, to be honest, and we will quickly get up to speed on this. I again would say that the parking, it's actually going to be, I think less issues than people think, because the parking that will be done will be going into the parking garages during the day, not overnight. It should not be an undue burden. There should be available spaces, transient spaces.
I think you really need to see the situation. There are already confrontations on the street during alternate side parking on Thursdays and Friday mornings. The garages are very expensive. I think people are going to try to park on the street, and it's already pretty bad.
Okay, that's possible. You may be right. I mean, that is possible. We're figuring that people who are going to go to an appointment where you don't know how long you're going to be in there for are not going to want to be parking on the street because they could get ticketed. They will be wanting to park in a garage, and there will be availability. That's what we think. But again, we are going to look into it and try and have more definitive answers for everybody, because we see that this does seem to, people are concerned about it.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the community whose most valuable questions and insight are important to us, and I'm sure important to Extel, and very helpful to the future of this project. Okay, we'll now go to the board members. The first one is Marco Tamayo.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
This question is for Mr. Barnett. Before I should say that, thank you for coming and present to the community. I think this is a very valuable presentation. Thank you, thank you. This question is for Mr. Barnett. Today's presentation is the final, or will there be modifications?
We don't think that the massing of the building is going to change. There could be some details that will change, but this is what we expect to be building, this general massing. We expect to stay throughout, and we don't expect to see any significant changes.
Mr. Barnett, in the last time that I came to the community board for the project on 86, one of the things that you said, your policy is thinner and taller. Is still the same, or you are planning to change?
I think that this building is what it is. So this is not thinner and taller. If we were doing a condo building, it would have been thinner and taller because the views would have been more critical and the dimensions of the apartments would have been different. This allowed us to, the fact that it's an office building allowed us to build larger floors, larger floor plates without having issues of depth and layouts for the apartments. So this is actually, I thought, I think the community would recognize it as the least imposing type of building that we could have done. We will be looking to do condos, of course, in the neighborhood, and you can see what's going up. And those buildings would have a different look. But in this case, these are the plans that we're planning to do, and I think it's relatively as non-controversial as anything ever is in New York City.
The HSS is your tenant?
HSS is our tenant, correct.
Okay, so you at any time can change to residential, is that correct?
You what? I'm sorry?
If it's HSS is your tenant, you at any time can change to residential, is that correct?
Anytime we can change what?
Yeah, if you want it, you can change it at any time for residential, is that correct?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, once they're our tenant, they're our tenant. They're going to be here for a very long time, God willing, and it's not going to be changed to residential.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask questions now about zoning and the height. Okay.
Thank you very much.
No, Elizabeth, I still having some questions. The third question.
I would just like to say too that I've reserved a certain amount of time for this. The questions went for a very long time prior to this, so I just want to keep that in mind, please.
Do you have any remaining floor area that you have as a right?
All of this is as of right.
Yes, I know that. That means, do you have something left that you still
additional air rights?
Yes, additional air rights.
Or you use everything? We may have additional air rights that we're not using. I don't know that offhand, but we can check that.
So
we've used as much FAR as we can within the strict limits of the city planning zoning guidelines. The building is, as we said before, fully compliant as of right. Sky plan exposure plans.
So the question is,
there are additional air rights, or there were additional air rights that we probably could have used if we were doing a residential building.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, because the issue is the section in the 79th Street. There's no an issue because it's contextual. So you cannot go more than 210. Period. Is that correct?
235.
That's right.
Okay.
210 feet is the height of the building on 79th Street. That's correct.
Yeah. So if that is the proportion, and you just only provide 29 stories, so I don't think that you say that it's 290 feet in the front. It should be. In proportion, it looks like it has maybe reached 500 feet.
So if you were on earlier when I was asking questions from the public, you would have heard.
No, I'm right here. I'm listening carefully.
Well, no, you would have heard me tell the lady next door who said that our massing is incorrect because the building across the street is 36 stories. That indeed our building is taller. it's not 29 stories in the context of people thinking it's 290 or 300 feet. Office floors are taller, and that I said I thought the building was around 400 feet.
It's
not
399.6, yeah.
399.6 to the top of the main building. I think pre
Plus the mechanical, yeah.
Yeah, pre-mechanical. So yes, the answer is
Has included the mechanical?
that does not include the mechanical. With the mechanical, it's probably around 425, 430.
30, as right. So the question is, the building across the street, where is the Gracie News, is between 80 and 81st Street. That building is 354 feet high.
Okay.
And you, seeing in the proportion and your scale that you presented, I don't think this building looks taller more than this supposed to be.
That's
And
incorrect. That's incorrect. In fact, the lady.
well, if you
why don't you put that on the screen, please, Carl, so he can show that we did indeed show this.
Good section, yeah.
Right there. We're completely transparent. You can see that it shows to be taller than that building.
okay, now if you see me in my background, I scale it, those buildings. I scale it using the building thinner and taller with your concept, and I put 30 by 80 feet. That will be the floor area, and you can, if the height of the floor is 16 feet, you can easily reach 800 or 700 feet tall.
Would you like us to make it full, Mark, or would you like us?
No, what I'm trying to say is
That'll be the first time. That'll be the first time when I'm on a meeting and the community board says, please make it taller, Gary.
No. No, you put words in my mouth, please. What I'm trying to say is your scale is wrong. I think it's much taller. That's what I'm trying to say. No, don't put words in my mouth.
Our scale is accurate, Mark.
Okay, so the other question that I have is definitely one of the concerns that I have is we need an environmental study of transportation, because with all respect to the hospitals is a nightmare between 72nd Street to 64th Street. Traffic is impossible over there. And especially the cul-de-sac on 72nd Street during the weekdays is impossible, is extremely dangerous. However, on the weekend, where is most of the doctors who went out home, is almost there is no traffic. That clearly shows that there is a big impact of the patients and doctors. And if you see over there, doctors that are coming with a very nice, beautiful car, because they have that, and they have this luxury to come from, obviously, from out of the city, and they not gonna come by bus, most likely. So this is extremely important, the traffic in that area. It will be very crucial. It will be crowded in that area, and that's, I think, is my major concern right now. And I would like to, I'm going to recalculate my numbers, my background. I'm going to recalculate with your numbers. But in the section that is no conforming use, you have 200,000 square feet available as of right, because you bought from Santa Monica approximately 100,000 square feet, and plus 100,000 that you have as of right, so it's 200,000 square feet. And you
thank you for pointing that out. We will grow the building.
Yes. So finally,
and to be fair on the traffic, that other area is very dense with other hospitals, emergency rooms. Tremendous amount of density there. Hospital for Special Surgery, as everybody knows, is the top orthopedic hospital in the world. It's a first-class operation. And if you have to have a health care facility in the neighborhood, this is the one I think we would all want. So
that's finally my question. The final question for you is: you said 29 stories. How is the average of each story?
I think the important thing is, as we say, that you're familiar with the zoning. The total height of the building is, including the overruns and the mechanical, is about 430 feet. It steps back at 210 feet from East 79th Street. So that's where the tower.
You mislead. I'm sorry, with all respect, but you misleading me. I'm an architect, so don't play with me, please. I'm going to be very straightforward with you. please give me the information, because if you don't have this information, you cannot do any drawings. And this information has to be available. And you know that the architects know very well. Probably he's in the, and the tip of the tongue. He's unwilling to say it.
Specifically, what do you want to know, Marco? What would you like to know? The height of the ceilings?
No, each story, how high it is.
It's about 13 feet. You do division.
13 feet.
13-foot floor-to-floor heights for the typical office space, correct?
Yeah.
13 feet, okay.
Yes, and I can confirm as an architect, NCARB 12 states that the setback on 79th Street is as Gary said. And I will confirm personally that it's 399.6 to the top of the 28th floor slab. Above that is a screened-in mechanical space. We're not making these numbers up. They're clear. They're part of our submission to the city, which will approve all these, of course.
So you
No one, we're not hiding anything. I'm not sure.
You have
where
already the drawings. You have already in DOB.
I'm sorry, sir.
You have your drawings in DOB now.
We've had some preliminary discussions with DOB. Yes.
So you don't have yet filed officially. You have.
We don't have an approval in hand at the moment, no, sir. But we're seeking.
But you have filing, so I can review the drawings over there. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you the rest of my fellow community members speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Next is Michelle.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to Extel for coming. We understand this is an as-of-right building. We have long requested that as-of-right construction come to us, although we do recognize it was not a requirement for you. So I want to thank you for that. And I also look forward to more presentations and to your being available to answering questions during the construction period, which is one of my questions. Will you have a liaison person during construction? And I can get quick answers. Anybody just jump in and answer so we don't have to wait.
Yes,
will you have a liaison person? Yes. Will the community board have a number so that if people have issues, they can have somebody to reach out to? Will that be in place?
Yes to everything, Michelle.
Okay, great. My next question is, well, number one, I think all of us, community people, development people, builders, construction, everybody has to get used to, we should no longer be using stories, because in everybody's head, a story is 10 feet. And one of my first questions that I was going to ask you, but it had been answered, is how many feet is this building? And that's really what we should be talking about. Stories is sort of an, in the sense that we think of it as 10 feet, is an obsolete thing. By itself, did I hear you correctly? The mechanicals are about 25 to 30 feet above the 400. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes,
okay. Now you said HSS is going to be one tenant, and you're looking for another tenant. Are you looking for one other tenant, or are you amenable to breaking up, you know, the area and renting to many others? That's one question. And are you limiting it to a certain kind of a tenant, i.e. in the healthcare business, or could it be straight office, or could it even be condo? What are your thoughts about that one other tenant?
So we ideally, we would love one other tenant. That would be the best. But we'll be open to breaking it up and having a tenant who would take 2 floors or 4 floors or 1 floor, or we don't know. So that we're taking a chance on the additional tenants. There will not be any residential in the tower unless we absolutely positively, cannot find any other tenants. I mean, there is some risk to this. We don't think that'll be the case. So right now, there's no intention of having any residential in the building. There could be other uses other than medical, but again, this is our idea. We think HSS is the perfect anchor. Everybody would like to be associated with them in the building, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get high quality, good users for the top of the building.
So your outreach is primarily to medical? I mean, that's your outreach, that's your first preference?
Yes.
Whether or not you have to break it up? Because does that include research as well? Because their floor plate needs are often different. That's why I ask.
There could be some research as well that would take it. I don't think they'll take the tower portions, but they could take some of the larger floor plans. But again, we're early days here. You know, we just signed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I got it. In the drop-off area, number one, what's the actual width of the driveway? Not the sidewalk portion, but within the circle. What's the width of that driveway?
Carl, do you have that?
I don't. Robert, do you have that handy, that data?
Yeah, it's approximately 60 feet.
60.
60, yeah.
Okay. Now, will you have staff? Will HSS have staff in that driveway that will be moving traffic along and that will help with drop off? For example, at your main hospital, you not only have staff that while that's a very unusual, very narrow, very congested and obsolete drop off, I know that the construction of that building doesn't permit you making it any wider, but you do have attendants there all the time. You also have wheelchairs there in order to help. You have the same kind of patient coming here. So I ask, will you have staff in that area?
So Ms. Brimbaum, this is Michael Rawlings from HSS. We imagine that we will have security and patient escorts as we do in all of our facilities.
Okay, terrific. That's good news. Last question actually is during the construction period, what are you going to do? Or I'm sure you have a plan about rodent mitigation. I'm sure you've been reading about the horror stories of rodents, especially since we have more food entities on the street and people finding more rodents than they have even in their cars. So with you digging up this site, do you have a good plan for rodent mitigation?
That's something we always do the best that we can with on that. We, I think, controlled it currently, and we've done built a lot of buildings in the city, and I think have kept good control over the rodent to the extent it's possible. We all know it's impossible to be perfect on this one.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your being here and I appreciate your thoughtful responses. And I look forward to further conversation, especially as to how comments of the public might be taken under consideration in your workplace meetings. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for having us here, and thank you. And we will continue to work closely with you and interact with you in terms of any other public concerns.
Elizabeth had to step away for a moment, so Adam Wald has a question.
Thank you for coming and giving this presentation. I have two questions, one for HSS and one for Mr. Barnett. The first one is, given that you've spent a significant amount of money recently assembling a 36,000 square foot site between 74th and 75th, which it also happens to be across from a 300 space parking garage that you also acquired, why isn't this facility being planned for that location? And second of all, why did you abandon residential when in favor of this plan? That question is for Mr. Barnett.
1 second, 74th and 75th. I'd like to have that site. Is that on First Avenue?
It's zone M14.
Where is it? Where's the address?
They have, it's block 1485. They own 6 lots that they've been assembling since 2011.
Right, so I can help answer that. One of those sites on 74th Street between York Avenue and the FDR is currently being renovated now for a pediatrics rehab. This program is existing in the hospital and will be moving to 74th Street sometime in June. We also, as you can imagine, a healthcare provider in COVID have had to stock up on many supplies. A lot of them have been very difficult to get. And so we are currently using the old car garage or auto body shop that is on 74th and on 73rd Street as a new warehouse that's currently under construction. That'll store medical surgical supplies that will be then used to provide the supplies both to the HSS main hospital building, the new Kellen Tower, as well as this facility on 79th Street, our current ambulatory surgery center on 2nd Avenue and 65th Street, as well as our ambulatory surgery center over on 58th on the west side, HSS at west side. And we've also just recently opened up a new facility on Lexington Avenue. So our strategy for putting those blocks and lots together long term would probably be perhaps, we're talking 20, 30 years, maybe a replacement hospital at some particular time. But right now is aired for pediatrics rehab and a warehouse for medical surgical supplies. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, and I guess the
Okay,
second.
the next speaker is Craig Lader.
Good evening. Thank you for this presentation and for taking the time to educate us about this project. I have a number of questions. The first set is just table setters that you should be answered easily before I get into my comments. And also before I even begin, I'd like to formally invite you to the Transportation Committee. I am the co-chair of the CB8 Transportation Committee. I think clearly transportation is a major consideration in this project, and there's a lot of interest in it. I think it would be really helpful if you were able to talk about it more, and we dedicated time specifically to a bunch of the issues that were discussed tonight. But just building on that as well, has there actually been a parking study conducted yet? Yes or no?
I don't know if a parking study's been conducted, but we're certainly going to get more up to speed on it, having heard tonight's comments.
Craig, I will say that HSS had conducted a traffic study, not necessarily a parking study.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that we need perhaps a little more work on the parking side. So again, some of these questions you've answered. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page as I go forward. Please confirm, the entrance to the driveway is on 80th Street, correct?
Correct.
And what is the clearance of that driveway, the height?
It's 14 feet, 14 feet.
So it'll be high enough to permit accessorized vans and most vehicles except for large trucks.
Yes.
That's correct.
All right, great. What are the general hours of operation in which patients are expected?
So we expect the majority of our patient operations between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Okay.
Monday through Friday.
Okay, great. And do you have a sense of what the modal split for patients and staff is in terms of the number of people coming via car versus taxi versus public transportation, both for patients and staff?
So we have some information that's based on what happens here at the HSS campus that has been shared with us, but I can't say that it was done at the proper times and is 100% accurate.
All right. Any general sense?
I would think that nearly, more than 50% of our staff, commute using public transportation, subways and buses, and probably 50% of our staff drive.
Okay. And the percentage of people that are coming from Manhattan versus outer boroughs and outside of New York City?
So this is a pretty easy one to answer for you, Craig. You know, HSS over the last number of years has expanded our geographic footprint significantly. We have facilities now in Stamford, Connecticut, Westchester, Long Island, Paramus, New Jersey. We have locations in Brooklyn, Queens, Hudson Yards. I mentioned the West Side. Also mentioned the new HSS Midtown that's been opened on Lexington Avenue and 60th Street. And we also have a large location in Florida as well too. So, you know, there should not be a big reason or a big draw for people to come from outside of the city, drive their vehicles, because our mission has been to expand our geographic footprint to provide the number one services that we do where people live.
Okay, that is definitely helpful to understand. And then two more questions, then I'll get into my comments. Do we know the percentage? Where precisely is the main entrance? On which street?
So the main entrance is on 80th Street. There is a way to gain access to that carport and main entrance to the hospital. To the outpatient center from First Avenue, right by the bus stop.
Okay, so if anyone is being dropped off, that drop-off activity isn't going to take place elsewhere because it's closest to that front entrance, but vehicles should be coming to the 80th Street side as opposed to drop-offs taking place at the corner of 79th and First on either 79th or on First Avenue.
No, we would encourage and expect people to use the drop-off, especially in weather, and by giving them that opportunity of not walking far.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that the actual front entrance to the building, was located at that same location by the driveway, as opposed to the front entrance being on 79th Street, and then the driveway access is on 80th Street, but there's a cut through.
So HSS's entrance is on 80th Street.
Okay, excellent. All right, then you said that you expect about 150 patients per day. How many staff will be working on a typical day?
Nearly 200 between all of the physicians, the nursing staff. We have physical therapy there that will be offered as well too, and pre-surgical screening.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at here is just baseline calculation, 150 patients per day over 9 hours. If that's would be about 16 patients an hour, which sounds, at least in my mind, very unrealistically small. And then when you combine that with the staff that would be coming in, and some of that staff obviously would be driving, and you say your guesstimate right now is about 50%, that does seem like it would have some significant impacts on parking and perhaps traffic generated from the hospital for the HSS medical building itself. So I do think we need to do a little more on that front.
So I think Gary has definitely said that, we'll work on looking at parking in the area as well as traffic studies.
Yeah, and I'm one who typically tends to think we don't want to promote parking, but in this case, I'm struggling with the lack of parking here, given the types of users of this facility. All right, and then the other question quickly was, do you anticipate a lot of deliveries, as in medical supplies and stuff? And should we be thinking about having commercial loading zones in place to accommodate some of those deliveries that your offices and facilities will need?
So there is a loading and receiving area on 80th Street. It's not a backup, but like I explained earlier, HSS is moving to a warehouse system where we will be dropping off we'll be receiving all of our supplies on 73rd and 74th Street and dropping off only what is needed when is needed. So we don't
Okay.
expect that to be during normal business hours.
Right, but we still, if you've ever attended one of our transportation committees, we're trying to deal with addressing the use of our curbsides and trying to make sure that we have sufficient, whether it be commercial loading zones, neighborhood loading zones, or this ability for people to be able to avoid having to double park whenever possible. So I'm just thinking about that. And then finally, I know someone mentioned the need for accessible parking spaces. I think that is something that we should all be thinking about if we're going to be having this facility here. I don't think it could be limited just to New York City residents, but I think that is something that should be thought about as we're thinking about all these considerations here. So I thank you for all the responses and for your attention to this, and hope that you will be able to join us at a transportation committee meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. The next speaker is Valerie Mason.
Hi, I live on 72nd Street. Mr. Barnett, I don't know if you'll remember me. We negotiated with you with your first building residential foray at 330 East 72nd Street. I was the vice president of East 320 East 72nd Street at the time. I know that you say that 72nd Street and where HSS is located now is not a very similar situation, but I really beg to differ. I think my first question is actually, I guess, for Michael Rawlings. Did Philip Habib have anything to do with the traffic and parking studies that were done in connection with your facilities there?
No, we deal with a different parking consultant, Sam Schwartz.
Okay. Well, okay, because everybody's talking about how great Philip Habib is. I just think that the parking and traffic situation down where your current location is, if it was the same traffic study person, I would be worried.
I think what Gary, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think what Gary was saying is that, you know, it's just not HSS that's located at 72nd Street. We share, you know, a very condensed area with Memorial Sloan Kettering, with New York Presbyterian, with a lot of inpatient hospitals, with emergency departments, ambulance department, ambulance, a lot of drop-offs. So, you know, this is 79th Street. It's blocks away from that. This is ambulatory. So I think that was the point that we were trying to make.
Right. But I think if you want to look at a very similar location, and I think one of my fellow board members raised it, if you look at the cul-de-sac on 72nd Street, which isn't a hospital, which has quite a few medical commercial buildings, the jam and the parking and the double parking and the triple parking and the waiting for people to come out in and out is really intolerable.
Right, and I'll let you know that HSS had actually worked with the local police precinct, and when they have traffic enforcement in the neighborhood, that actually helps significantly. And I want to thank Mr. Later. We'd spoken a while ago around about this time, and you know, I think when we were able to get you know, traffic enforcement out there, we saw a huge change on 72nd Street.
Right, and I think you used the operative words, when we're able to get traffic enforcement out there. So that's why this is a community that's very sensitized to the traffic, potential traffic. I don't want to call them potential traffic, because I think there are a number of us on the phone who already foresee what may happen here. And I do appreciate you coming this early in the process, I guess, to sort of walk through it. However, the other piece of it is, I've heard Mr. Barnett say a couple of times that this will only be a 9 to 5 problem. I mean, this is a residential neighborhood that does use their cars and does get on buses, et cetera, in the neighborhood. And so there are a large number of residents who are in this neighborhood during the period of 9 to 5 every day. So it's not like there's going to be traffic and when we all come home, we're not going to see it. It's going to have a real impact. And I appreciate Craig mentioning, you know, are we going to need commercial loading zones? One question I want to ask is, and I think somebody asked about the roundabout, and then I only have one more question, is when you talked about the circular driveway, is that going to just be enough to have 2 cars? Because I've seen the one that goes through HSS, and there's sometimes you can't get through because there are 2 cars taking the space, and that's a straight run through. That's not even a circular driveway. I didn't see on the renderings how you're going to account for that.
If I can address that, Carl Ordeman, the drive-through is, as Robert said, 60 foot in diameter. That's 30 feet for each part. Take out 10 in the middle. That gives you true drive lanes going around. And we've laid it out physically so that you can get at least 4 or 6 or whatever cars in there, though we don't anticipate any more than 4. And any car can be parked on the side while someone's getting out and someone passes on the inside lane.
And you don't foresee anybody using that as sort of a cut through in the traffic to get, they can't find a parking space, so they just pull in and sit there? I mean, it seems to me like it may turn out to be sort of an attractive nuisance as well.
It's going to be attended by security and by staff, and nobody's going to be allowed to do that. They're going to keep people moving.
Okay, well, that's good luck with that. On a different part, I want to ask, are you intending to put some kind of snow melt system in the sidewalk? It's a pretty big footprint.
Would you like to see snow melt or not? We've done snow melt in some places. Doesn't work that well, particularly when there's heavy snow, particularly on the edges. I don't think we're such a big fan of it. I've tried it several places. It doesn't work quite as well as we want. And then sometimes DOT damages it. Sometimes there's water that starts pooling and icing. So, I mean, it could be, in a perfect world, it's very nice to have. I'm not sure that it actually works as well as we'd like it to.
All right, well, just to consider it. And then I'm just trying to understand, it seems like you want to get into the ground right away, but if we're talking about maybe putting parking spaces, how quickly are you going to be able to do a parking and traffic study to see if this building actually does need parking?
I think we're going to be able to do a survey quite quickly. So, and that's what we're going to try and do right away.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I couldn't.
I said, I think we're going to be able to do a survey quite quickly, and that's what we're going to try and do as soon as we can to determine what kind of parking is going to be available.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie. The next board member is Carl Spagnoletti.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. I'm just wondering, we talk about Extel coming to the board for DOT, but I think we should have MTA and Department of Transport come rather than Extel, because they're the cause of it, but DOT and MTA is going to be solving the solution. So I think we should have them. You mentioned something about you may put residential units in there, but if the height is 13 feet and that's not for residential, how are you going to get around it?
Not sure I understood that question.
Well, your floors are 13 feet tall now, floor to top, correct?
Slab to slab, correct. Yeah, that's typical office occupancy.
But if you're going to put residential, then
you'd have a higher ceiling height. If
we're not
doing residential.
We're not planning for residential.
Okay, but if somebody said that eventually you may, so at this stage you will not. Okay. Extel and HHS being civic-minded and all that, not if, but when will you be coming to the board to let us know what enhancements you're going to be giving us or the residents of the area to the parks, the promenades, and any improvements to community area?
Free ice creams for everybody.
I'm sorry?
Free ice creams for everybody.
Okay. No, it's a serious question, sorry.
But we're not, this is an as-a-right building. We want to cooperate, we want to coordinate, we want to do as well as we can, but we're not offering to spend significant sums of money on neighborhood improvements as a result of building this building. This is an assemblage that's taken over 10 years. It's cost us a fortune. It's not like we're going to, just go ahead and be putting in neighborhood improvements on a as-of-right building. That's not typical.
Okay, thank you. But if you come to us for any waivers, then you will consider it.
Everything in this town is a negotiation, as you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next questioner is Elaine Walsh.
Thank you for coming. It has been a long time waiting. And I know the first presentation was very different with a possible school on the retail space. I gather that that is not going to happen because I can't tell how much of your retail space is left. So how much is on the ground floor that will be retail?
Not a substantial amount, probably less than a third of the site.
Aren't you required on the ground floor to do retail?
I don't think so, but in any event, we will have some retail on the ground floor, but just.
I would ask that you look. I think you're required to have full retail on the street level.
We actually have it defined, it's about 1/3 of the footprint, so, and we're fully code compliant.
Okay, we'll look at that together and we got some information. I was confused. I thought you just said that the entrance for a hospital would be on 80th Street. I thought the entrance there on First Avenue with one very large for the.
They're both. They're two entrances. The drive-in and the is on 80th. There is a walk-in entrance on First Avenue as well.
Okay.
So but that's what you got. But there's nothing.
Right. Okay.
But there's no entrance on 79th Street, which I think was the concern.
Oh, okay. That's what I was confused. No, I knew that you did not have that. And you recently said, which was one of my questions, are you going to have OT and PT at that site?
Yes, we plan to have OT, PT, and physical therapy, rehabilitation.
Occupational and speech, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are those numbers calculated in what you said were the number of patients that would be coming daily to the site?
Yes, expected patient daily is 150 with 39,000 per year.
And do you know how many are OTPTs?
I cannot give you a breakdown on that. We might be able to go back and let you know what the program fully is planned. But we're taking the first 8 floors, and one of those floors will be for physical therapy.
Because I assume the people coming for physical therapy will be coming not on public transportation, but will be using cars or, as you say, Uber, which only adds to our congestion. So I would like you, when you're looking at the traffic study, to include that you're going to have PT people, possibly the OT, also will not be using public transportation. So that would be appreciated. The other piece you talk about, well, you've not really looked at the parking situation and you think it's something that's manageable because it's 9 to 5. Have you looked at the issue of congestion pricing coming to the community, which means we are going to have more and more people circling, looking to park prior to crossing 60th Street or whatever the new line will be. I say that because when we looked at it, when it was going to be 86th Street, it was horrendous. And this will be all day. So have you looked at that issue? Because the other thing is that many of the parking garages, particularly around the hospitals, have already negotiated, the hospitals have negotiated with parking garages to take the space, which means that residents will have less options to park. So have you looked at that at all?
We haven't taken a look at any of the congestion pricing. We certainly will take a look at it with the parking study that we do.
It's very important because it is going to be horrendous. Also, 80th Street is really the access road to go down to East End Avenue and to get onto the FDR Drive, because 79th is always so backed up. I would suggest you look at that issue and the fact that between York and East End, the 79th Street bus makes the left on York and then goes down, so that there will be traffic. So I think that's something else that needs to be looked at. I have a number of other questions, but I look forward to your coming back for us to have a discussion here in zoning. The one thing I will comment, and it's more internally when you're building, and I don't know if you're there yet, is that I recently have been at some of the new facilities, medical, and the doors into the rooms for treatment are not ADA. And I'm talking about MSK is one on 74th Street. It is not ADA compliant. And I have been in other buildings now that are not. So I would ask that you, whoever's doing your internal, that they ensure that ADA is met.
So HSS has a very strong, support of meeting ADA with everything that we do. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. We certainly will make sure that all of our facilities are ADA compliant.
I go to one of yours where a doctor splits with two hospitals and it's not totally ADA. So I hear you. The final thing is I think Adam was really talking about the site 73rd, 74th, York to the river. And you said that the old car repair shop is now going to be storage. Is that long-term or short-term?
We are investing substantial money right now in renovating that car garage into a warehouse facility for the storage of medical surgical supplies, not only just for HSS, but for our entire system within the general New York area.
Okay. My understanding was that the cars were moved over from the south side of 73rd because you had to do some rehab or rebuilding of violations on that site. So you're fixing up that site and then you're going to bring the cars back, your cars back in the garage?
You're right. So at the end of 73rd Street, HSS owns a parking garage. We had some work done over the summer. During that work, we had our hospital employees park in the warehouse before we started the construction, while we had substantial sums of money invested in restoring that facility. And we've since moved everyone back at the beginning of December and are moving forward with the plans for the warehouse. There are no longer cars being stored in the warehouse.
Okay. The site you're talking about, you need to look at the zoning. It was M1. Years ago, the property was sold to the hospital with the understanding it would be used for hospital, not for storage, but for hospital needs. So you're in the wrong zoning right now. And I think you need to look at that again. And I think we will also, because that site was to be for HHS had said they were going to build a hospital there. It is not a storage facility. That's the old M1 zoning. So I'm very concerned what is really going on not only that site, but 73rd to 74th, where my understanding is that you have poured up the other lots except for the Italian restaurant that has a 7-year lease. So could you give us some idea of the plans there from HHS, or come back to us at another meeting?
I think this is going far afield. This is not.
It's not going far afield. I'm sorry. It all has to do with how things are being moved with HHS that had other options, have chosen a lovely, lovely site to go to. But what is happening with the other site?
I get it, but this is kind of our block, our site that we're here to voluntarily go through things with you.
But this is your tenant.
I think you should take up whatever you want to take up with HSS and another.
I don't know who's talking.
It's Gary Barnett I'm talking.
Okay.
And I think to be fair,
if you heard me,
perfectly respectful to
at another
point.
time,
We've been
because
at this meeting now for over 2 hours answering questions, and I would ask you to not to start questioning HSS about their future plans on other sites. We're sitting here. We would like to move on, please.
Gary, I understand. I too have been on over 2 hours. I did say they could come back another time, but it came up because they mentioned they would be doing storage there. They initiated it. It was a natural outcome. And you know that. I offered that they come back and we have that discussion because we are really now concerned also with the other site and how it plays into your site. Because to be honest, the community did ask, why is HHS going to 79th Street when they have 73rd, 74th Street? It's out there. Thank you. Thank you. And you're not sharing, Elizabeth is.
Thank you. And the next questioner is Sharon Pope Marshall.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Extel and Perkins Eastman, for taking the time to come to the community board to present this as of right building. We really do appreciate it. And as it was said earlier, we have often asked for these types of presentations. So really appreciate you being here this evening. I basically have two questions. The first is, we heard approximately 150 HHS patients would come in at a time and during the day, and approximately 200 staff people. Now, what do you think the numbers will be for the other half of the building? So I'm asking because the numbers have strictly been for HHS, but HHS is only occupying half of the building. So then we've got the other half, and you know, I'm sure that you have an optimal tenant in mind. You said that you had hoped for a single tenant. My fingers are crossed for you, you know, for that as well. But what is your thinking in terms of how much the numbers will rise above 150 and above 200 should you get that single tenant?
We really don't know. You know, generally healthcare is not high density usage, but on the other hand, if it's patient related, there will be people coming. Patients will be coming. So we don't know. Until we find a tenant, until we have particular tenants, we really are in no position to say what the activities will be.
Okay, fair enough. And you left open the door that outside of HHS, the remaining portion of the building could become residential. And you left open the door by saying, well, if we can't get a tenant, or if we can't get that optimal single tenant, or if we can't get tenants, then that's a possibility as well. You know what? I was really wondering, when would your pencils down moment be for making that decision?
Years from now. We didn't say an optimal tenant, we said any tenants. And it would be years from now. Our very strong intention is to keep this as a medical building, and that's you know, it would really be a you know, it'd be only if we have no choice at all that we would seek to go residential.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for.
The building is being designed, you know, with open floor plates for a totally different use, so it wouldn't be easy to convert to residential either. So that's really far down the road. We hope it never comes to that.
I see. Thank you.
Rita Popper is next.
Thank you very much for this presentation. You understand that we're very, very concerned about traffic and getting to hospitals and getting away from hospitals. I just want to remind you that on First Avenue and on Second Avenue, which have express buses, that neither going south or north is an express stop at 72nd Street. And with your help, now that's the only crosstown street that does not have an express bus stop. So the express bus stop going north on First Avenue goes from 68th Street to 79th Street, and going south, it goes from 79th Street to 68th Street, and there is no 72nd Street stop. There are now you're going to have many patients, many people who are going to need as much city transportation as possibly could get. Would it be possible for you to help get that express bus stop at 72nd Street on First Avenue and Second Avenue? That would really help. It would really help the people who live in the area, will help people coming to the area. It will eliminate the need to take a car because they could take an express bus. Costs the same amount of money as a regular bus.
We would be happy to look into it with you and to see if there's some.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
We'd be happy to look into it with you and to see if there's something that we could come up with that would justify such an ask on our part. So maybe we try and get together later and see if there's some.
It really would make a tremendous difference, especially getting to all of your campuses, so on and so forth, or inter-campus. If you want to get from 79th Street down to 72nd Street, it only involves the MTA and people with your strong thumb. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think the next speaker should be Alita Camp, because you've spoken, Craig. So we'll put you next after that.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thank you, Extel, for coming and for staying so long for an As of Right project. It really matters to the community. I just wanted to say that small business is essential to the vitality and vibrancy of New York. When you're configuring the retail, even if it's limited to 1/3 of the building, if you would consider configuring it in a way that it could benefit small businesses, maybe have some small business, small spaces, and one larger space that given the way banks and Dwayne Reed and CVS take up a lot of space, they could maybe subsidize by higher rents the ability to have small businesses in that space. We've lost so many, and since this is new and you have some control, and clearly you seem to be interested in the community, it would really matter. So that's my input. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alita. Craig?
Hi, thank you for letting me speak quickly again. I had realized there's an important question that I forgot to ask, and then I have one clarification I'm requesting. The bus stops that would be moved during construction. So do you have an answer as to where they will be moved temporarily, both on 79th Street and First Avenue?
The one on First goes to between 80th and 81st on First, so just across, and the one on 79th goes across First Avenue to the west side of First Avenue.
Okay, that's what I suspect. I just want to make sure that was the case. And when will this actually occur?
I guess when we really start construction, but Thiago, do you know how early it starts? Or? I don't know. We don't hear him. Maybe he had to go to sleep.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was especially interested in the First Avenue issue because I think I understand why keeping it as close to 79th is beneficial, but I think there would be some serious concerns about safety if we have buses on the curbside on the south side of 79th Street with turning vehicles and potential conflicts, and it would create some real issues for vehicular and pedestrian and safety. So that was why I was concerned about that. And then the other thing quickly is I had asked before about where the entrances were. Maybe I phrased it wrong because I referred to main entrance, but I think it was said afterwards that there will be a pedestrian entrance on First Avenue between 79th and 80th. Is that correct?
There will be two pedestrian entrances on First Avenue between 79th and 80th. One for the future tenant to be determined, and the second entrance is the pedestrian component that marries up with the vehicle entrance for HSS.
Okay, so I guess what I want to just put out there for your consideration is making sure that when the project is complete and the building is operational, that there is a way to ensure that vehicles that are dropping people off actually are directed onto 80th Street and into the entrance rather than blocking the bus stop to be unloaded on First Avenue in front of that pedestrian entrance.
And it makes sense, and I'm sure they're going to direct them that way because it just makes sense, and everybody's going to want to do that.
It makes sense, but for impatient people and taxi drivers and such, you know that they'll drop people off wherever is closest to that nearest entrance without having to wait for another traffic light to make an additional turn. So
fair comment. Fair comment.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grady. Well, before we go on to the next item, I really, on behalf of I'm sure all the board members and all the members of the community, express how grateful we are to Extel for giving us so much time. It's been extremely valuable to us and to the community, and I hope that it's helpful to Extel as it goes forward. The next item is our proposal, which has gone on for too long, for our special districts on 1st, 2nd, 3rd in York.
I'm going to get off. Can I just say thank you very much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to hear input from the community and from the board. We look forward to working with you, hopefully in a cooperative spirit, to get something done as fast and as well as we possibly can. So thank you very much for having us, and we'll be working with you closely as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, and stay healthy.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, thanks very much. Okay, the update on our proposal, and for those who are unfamiliar, we have a proposal for first, second, third, and York, which are the only streets and avenues on the Upper East Side that don't have either a special zoning district or contextual zoning to protect its character and livability and quality of life and scale, and particularly saving the affordable housing, which we've lost a great deal too much of. So our proposal is to save the low-rise affordable housing, for sake of saving housing and keeping the people who live there in there, saving the scale by creating a height limit of 210 feet, which is the prevailing height limit on avenues and wide side streets on the Upper East Side. There isn't where there is a height limit, there's nothing higher on the Upper East Side, and protecting the small businesses. And we originally proposed two, the Lenox Hill and the Yorkville special districts. Recently, in the last few months, city planning has asked our planner to combine it into one special district, the Yorkville Lenox Hill special district. So he is preparing combining them into one and making certain changes that are now required by city planning for special zoning districts. So he's working on that now. And the good news is that we're now getting better feedback from city planning. In the past, long time ago, we went and met with city planning, and we came away feeling somewhere between ignored and unloved. And I think we now have a better chance. What we ought to think about, I think, is informing our new elected officials, getting their support as we go forward. And as soon as he's filed, I think we will share the application with the committee and then start to work immediately of getting that support to push it forward as fast as we can. And maybe, I don't know if anybody thinks it's a good idea, but maybe we should, in the meantime, write to our new elected officials and just inform them of what we're up to and tell them that we want their support going forward. Any members of the public who want to, any members of the community board who want to have a comment here? Okay. Let's see who's the first in the community. Alita?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I would just like to raise the suggestion of having a little bit of extra height for affordable housing. The experience, the unfortunate experience with the blood center was the way the community was painted. And I think that's something that may crop up again in terms of a response. So, and plus, as you've mentioned, we've lost an awful lot of affordable housing to these destructive buildings that are only market rate. I know it was important to city planning to maintain affordable housing. Maybe they'll be even more responsive. And I'm not talking about a lot, but just enough. And also it will help us bring in, it will help us strengthen the community if we have a provision for a little bit of extra height with real affordable housing, maybe permanent affordable housing at particular marks of AMI, which I know is always contentious. It's just a suggestion because we do need the height limit that you're talking about. We do need the protection for the affordable housing that's there and for the small businesses that are there. But bringing in additional affordable housing, I think would benefit the community and help us strengthen the application and make it, I think, a smoother process. Plus, people really do need housing in the community. So thank you very much. I'm sure I could be more articulate, and I appreciate your patience. Thanks.
Okay. Well, sorry to, I will comment here that in 210 feet, there's an example of how much you could put in a building under 210 feet. It's a new building at the northeast corner of Lexington Avenue and 86th Street. It's just under 210 feet tall. It has the usual 10 FAR that's as of right. It has an extra 2 FAR, bringing it up to 12 FAR that for affordable housing, and it has an extra 17,000 square feet of air rights that were transferred to the building next door. So I think, just my opinion, I'm not speaking for anyone else, but the 210 height limit is very important to me, and you can get a +2 FAR of affordable housing in the community, and it is shown in the other building, another 17,000. You can get an awful lot of affordable housing bonuses in 210 feet. So I hope maybe on its deathbed, I would agree to something else, but otherwise I really feel that 210, which is the highest we have on the Upper East Side, is something very much worth saving. Next is Michelle.
Can I just say something, Elizabeth, really quickly? I'm not disagreeing that there is a tremendous opportunity to include it within the 210, but I think an affirmative statement recognizing and allowing for a bit of more height for additional or real affordable housing would be an enormous statement that would go far in getting public support, not just from our local council members, but from the entire city council, if we could show that this is something that we really want to do as a community. And that's why I made the suggestion. I know it's not 210. I know it's asking for a little bit more. I know that 210 matches the west side. When I go down by the Flatiron building and see sky, I'm really astonished at what it looks like because we don't see it up here. But I think we need to make progress. We need to show that we are a community that cares. And as an affirmative statement, this could really say something along those lines. And I'll stop here. Thank you.
Okay. Michelle?
Thank you. I wouldn't be talking about an increase in the height at this point, because I understand where Alita's coming from, and it's a very valid point, making it more acceptable to others. However, I think it puts us in a position of negotiating with ourselves. I think we have a little bit of we have a cushion. Let's go forward with our proposal as it stands. And there will be, and make the case how this 210 includes affordable housing, and make the case later on if we need to, or change if we need to. What I wanted to address tonight, though, is in past meetings, I've asked whether or not we can go back to the other preservation organizations on the Upper East Side who are actually wanting height limits, but have come up with a different height limit suggestion, 330, 400, whatever it is. and asking them if there is some way that they could join with us. It just seems to me, I've raised this before, I don't know if anybody did any additional outreach. They're on the meeting, so they hear what I'm saying. Just because having a more united front just seems to me to make more sense than for each of us to submit our own plan. And while I know the logical inference would be, why don't we split the baby and come out in the middle somehow, somewhere between 3:30 and 2:10 or whatever it is. But I would ask if they could support us in the lower number. Because as I said, otherwise we are really, well, most of us are usually on the same page. We are now negotiating against ourselves, and we're negotiating against other organizations who generally we share the interest. And it just seems to me that in negotiation, you usually ask for the best of what you want, and you worry about, the negotiations later on. So I'll again put it out there, even though I don't know if Elizabeth wants to make a formal gesture to these organizations to come and join us. But whether or not, I would just like to put it out there tonight. To address Elizabeth's comment about if we should write a letter to the new elected officials, I think that's absolutely a good idea. And I think it would also be a good idea since it is a resolution by this board, you would be representing the community board. If you and Anthony requested meetings with Keith and Julie, so that you could present your case in person, I think that would be a good idea, but certainly at the very least, a letter is certainly a fine idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Sharon Weiner? Sherry Weiner? You're not muted.
I just got unmuted. I have to agree with a couple of the things that Michelle said. I think that we need to set forth a unified position amongst all the organizations to see if we can get them to agree with us on the 210 height limit. I think it's easier for elected officials to have a unified position presented to them as opposed to all over the board. I think it's also important that we have a meeting set up more than just a letter, because Julie Menon is new to the position. She's probably not familiar with our reasoning. And I think, we could send a letter to start with, but I think certainly a meeting in person is important. And I think that should be set up sooner than later. So my points are uniformity is important. I think we should meet with the other groups on the Upper East Side to see if we can get them to agree to the 210 foot limit. And we certainly should set up a meeting with Julie Menon, particularly to explain our point of view to her. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the meeting should come once we have something that is filed, which will be filed soon. And I think it's very important to meet with them. But I just thought something to warn them ahead of time is not a bad idea. And I will mention, I don't have the authority to mention their names, but there are Upper East Side organizations that already support the proposal for 210 feet. And they probably could help us. I don't know what position the community board is in when it asks, organizations ask us for support. I don't know how the reverse works. I'd have to investigate. But I certainly think somehow, if we can't somehow the supporting organizations might do it. But I'm ignorant, so don't believe me on that. But I agree entirely on the organizations. Marco?
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think we had to keep in mind, we never excluded nobody in the community board. Always the doors are open for the non-for-profits. What happened is regrettably the last city council member, he rather to say, let's go put together to work. What he did is some money for the community board, some money for the other organization and the other organization. So everybody took a money and then they did. I mean, what I'm saying is they use it in something that they believe, not what the community board wants. They went for the silly. Let me put like Elizabeth, you said the shenanigans. That's what it is. And they spend money. And now we have officially the mechanicals every 75 feet, 25 feet high in those buildings, rather to put a high limit. And with a high limit, we don't have to discuss nothing about mechanicals. So I think we are in the right track. Always, they are welcome to come to join us. We never close their doors for them. This is the community board. And this is a comment about what Michelle said. So the other point is, regrettably also, I was very busy these months, but now I'm planning to go back and help the planner. But one of the major points what I would like to raise is our community board is the densest in populations in the whole city. That means we had to read and we had to find out something that fit to our needs. In other community boards, probably they are hunting to bring more members to their community. In our community, what we have to do is to protect the existing residents in our community, and that we have to go target in that direction, because we don't want to bring even more people that we are the densest. So we need is to create something more coherent with the needs of our residents, especially low-income residents. But at the same time, we have to work with densities. Density is the key all of that right here now. The density, yes, everybody talking about the maximum density, and that's basically most of my clients. They say, put me the highest density. No, right now on the Upper East Side. The Upper East Side is going in different direction. The Upper East Side, they try to put lower density. And when they put lower density, they create one typology of housing. And we had to create housing for the middle income. We had to create for the low income family, for the extremely low income housing, for all these kind of people. And I think that is the direction we have to move. And especially looking to protect those residents that has been living in some kind of subsidy housing and help them to maintain that status, because that is our goal that we have to start looking specifically for our community board. Other community board probably they run in different directions, but they don't have the conditions that we have. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. I see that we have a member of the public. Wait a minute, where does this? Leah Hanlon?
Yes,
is a member
hi.
of the public.
At the last zoning meeting a couple months ago, there was it was mentioned that there would be a kind of a debrief, lessons learned from the blood center, and people are sort of making piecemeal comments about that are very useful. But are we going to have a more organized discussion of that so that we can, use the PR lessons?
We're discussing our proposal.
Indeed, and since this is being discussed in the course of the proposal, I I wondered if we could have that discussion. You can put it under new matters or whatever, but that's being discussed now and not at the lessons learned discussion that was mentioned at the last meeting.
It will. I believe someone is bringing that up under old business. So hold on that. We'll continue the discussion of our proposal, and then if nobody does, you could bring it up under old or new business.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay, Rita Popper.
I did it. Unmute me.
You're
unmuted, Rita.
Okay. You all know where I stand. That 210 is a great height limit. But it really bothers me when we talk about, let's add a little bit more height and give some affordable housing. We have lost 14,000 apartments in Community Board 8. We don't need a little bit of, 10 apartments here and 5 apartments there that are affordable. We need full buildings that are affordable. And we know it works because of Mitchell-Lama. They were all 100% affordable. I say this because the governor has this nice big pot of money and was talking about a Mitchell-Lama program. I think we should do 210, but I think that we also need to show that most of that right now is going to go for affordable housing. That's my contribution.
Thank you. Gail Barron.
I think that we can all agree that there is just so much overbuilding with buildings that are too tall. I think we can also agree that there is such a need for affordable housing in our neighborhood. Rita just cited 14,000 apartments lost, but I think it's actually even beyond what we've lost at this point in time, because the perception of our neighborhood is everybody who lives here is not on a fixed income. They're super wealthy and people don't need to have affordable housing. I would think as we move forward with our 210 proposal, and I think for air and light and quality of life, we've got to keep our buildings not taller than that. If we can create unity and bring in the other preservation companies and organizations to join with us, terrific. But I think what we have to do as we finalize the proposal is maybe educate city planning a little more, not making it sound like we don't need or want affordable housing, but that saving the tenements is saving affordable housing. I mean, their particular protocol in allowing so much development, in essence, with the tenements being knocked down and replaced with tall luxury buildings, is destroying affordable housing. And if we can point out that there is the potential to FAR, like, for example, Elizabeth, using the 86th Street building as an example, that with thoughtful development, you can still have and maintain affordable housing within that 210 height limit, but still in our back pocket, be willing to be a little flexible if it turns out that the only way that we can win. And I agree with you, one can do it when we're close to having to be resuscitated, Elizabeth, but I think it should be in our back pocket, certainly not in the beginning of any negotiation. But we should kind of look at whether or not giving up a little bit of height, if everything else fails, and hopefully it will not, in our position will prevail. But I think we also have to be realistic to figure out where we go from here. And hopefully we're able to maintain the 210 and move forward with city planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Walsh?
I'm using two computers because
Elaine, I would not use two computers in the same Zoom. It'll create a lot of echo.
regular computer. Is this better?
Yes, we can hear
Okay,
you.
sorry. I was going out. I had 2 minutes left or something like
That's
that.
okay.
Okay. What I was saying is that a community civic group did go to city planning with a proposal 350, 320, whatever. They were rejected. When we met with city planning, we were not rejected and they said to come back. The strategy has been to wait for the new administration, given that we knew to be changes. So I think what the committee has done is incorporate what has been said tonight, but there are strategies that one uses. And one of the important things in the 210 is preserving the tenements and the retail stores, the small businesses. Where are a lot of our affordable units? On the side streets in R8B. And that now is almost going to be our bigger fight because of what happened in the blood center. And by the way, we did last month do some lessons learned from that. Rachel was kind to come. We need to ensure that we don't have the upending of R8B in our neighborhood, because if that happens, there goes our affordable housing. Not that there's not others around, but that's a block. So I would say that right now we're moving ahead on the 210, thank God. And there's been a positive reception to at least talking, which we did not have previously. So I want to give support to the committee to take the leadership and move this forward. And I think once the city planning receives the application and there's a discussion, there'll be further communication with the community. Remember, the community has supported the 210. Hundreds of people have come to the meetings to support it. And that's what we're going to do and preserve and hopefully get more affordable housing. I just want to say with affordable housing, I'm not sure what affordable housing is anymore. And I think that'll be a different discussion with the housing committee, because what is affordable? What does that mean? And I'll leave it at that. But I think rather than this go around now with coming back with ideas that were discussed over and over in other meetings, that we just move forward with what's proposed and approved previously. Thank you.
Thank you. I see we have a member of the public.
How do they keep coming?
Hello? I was muted for a minute. A member of the public, Andrew Ravershare, is the next speaker.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak, and I'm really happy that we are having this conversation. And there's so much to say. I am really grateful that people are holding strong on keeping the height limit at 210 feet, because I've been testifying for the past 2 years based on peer-reviewed data how buildings above 100 feet, which is around 10 floors, and 210 feet, which is around 21 floors, pollute more carbon and climate change pollution, that remediation efforts are not sufficient, that when buildings are quote unquote LEED certified, they actually don't have major differences in their climate change pollution. In fact, there's just a study out of Europe that showed that energy buildings with a grade of C as opposed to B are actually more friendly to the climate. So when these developers say they can build tall and super climate friendly, that's a lie. There's also the urban heat island effect, which means that our temperatures are 4 to 5 degrees hotter, and it puts us at a much weaker position at a cellular level in terms of fighting off disease. Someone else talked about kind of the perception of this area and what we can do about it. We are in a major flood zone. When Hurricane Sandy was here, I'm sure we all remember the FDR was so flooded the day before that people were kayaking for fun because the storm hadn't hit yet, and it was so surreal. We remember the floods around NYCHA and all up above First Avenue. We need to partner with Community Board 11 to form a wider area of a 210-foot height cap. A, for climate change reasons, but B, as wonderful as it is that the governor is proposing the completion of the Second Avenue subway, that is a recipe for gentrification up and down Second Avenue, where they're going to want to build near transit, understandably so. Developers are going to see emerging areas and they're going to build straight to the sky. So we need to develop a plan with our partners to the north. In addition, in order to make sure that we really get the message across that we want affordable housing, or rather housing that is affordable, because affordable housing is not affordable. We need to create our own comprehensive plan for housing. And luckily, Julie Menon also covers parts of Midtown East. There is a tremendous opportunity right now for affordable housing conversion and decarbonization efforts with office buildings in Midtown. There's a way to get people to work. It's a way to get people into homes. It's a way to create jobs. And we can create this plan. And we can keep the housing that we have. We can actually expand on housing that is affordable in our city. We can get the 210 height cap, and we can protect ourselves against climate change. It doesn't have to be an either an or, but it does mean we have to expand out. We have to form coalitions with other community boards and other neighborhood groups. I'd be happy to be a part of it. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Michelle Birnbaum and then Rita Popper.
Yeah, I just want to say, I want us, at least it's my opinion, that we should focus on this 210 at the moment. Let's not dilute it. Let's not branch out. There are other issues for another day, other issues on which we have not done thorough research, other issues on which we have not yet taken a position. Some of us not as individuals, others, and certainly not of the board. Other issues are outside of our community board. The whole Midtown zoning thing is not something we could readily jump into now. That has more problems than it does solutions. It requires a big effort from a lot of people. It is not within our purview at this moment, which doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of people on this call and plenty of organizations that don't want to get involved with it. But for the moment, our job is to get the 210 height limit, and let's not cloud it with other issues. Affordable housing, if the state wants to take initiative on providing or sponsoring or financing of affordable housing, that's fine. That's one thing. When we are talking about affordable housing and private developers, you have to consider that it has to be financially feasible for a developer, a for-profit developer, to build a building that's all affordable housing. If they could do that, that's wonderful, that's terrific. At this moment, that's not our purview. We have to get the 210 height district. I don't want us to be diverted from that, and anything that springs from that we can deal with as it goes on. So please, let's focus on that and get it done, because it'll be a fabulous triumph, and it will have ancillary effects on a lot of other things. So let's work on that and not dilute it. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. That's the focus of our proposal. Rita Popper?
I am proposing that affordable housing is between 40% and 100% area median income, not 185%. This gives people a chance to move up. You know, a lot of those houses on the side streets are not exactly affordable. Our own board member lives in an affordable housing. She said she's paying $2,000 for a studio apartment. If you go to above that, you're not giving people a chance to move up and live better. And even though there are people who are afraid of this, they look at what affordable housing did for Tribeca, for Independence housing that was built as market rate housing and couldn't sell because there was nothing there. Did a Mitchell-Lama affordable, rented the whole place out, and they brought a movie theater. They brought restaurants, they brought a library, they brought a school to the area. So it's not that you're just giving, it's also and it all can be done in 210. It doesn't have to be just single-minded. I hear this all the time, and it upsets me that people are so afraid that affordable people, that lower income people will be living near them. But, you know, Mitchell-Lama was a huge success, and those were really affordable housing. So I'm done. I'm putting my pedestal away. Had it.
Okay. Thank you. I think that that covers that subject. And is there any, I know that Elaine Walsh has an old business, but I think, Elaine, am I right? Or I guess not. Okay, any old business?
I guess that's me, Leah Henley.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
at the last meeting, which was in November, it was mentioned that we at this meeting were supposed to have a debrief of the blood center in order to review the lessons learned that would help us with the zoning proposal. I had a few suggestions from that, but I think that there was supposed to be a consideration of how we could improve the zoning based on what we learned from the not entirely successful blood center action. For example, I think that our PR has to be considered. It's not only the perception that the Upper East Side is somehow opposed to affordable housing, but also, I mean, New York Times columnists made fun of the shadow objection. I mean, it was kind of counterproductive in the end. But all of these things kind of need to be discussed so that we can pitch the zoning proposal in the best possible way in light of what we learned from the blood center and perceptions of the Upper East Side. I thought we were going to have that discussion at this meeting because it was it was said at the last meeting that we would have this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it is zoning itself, because the blood center site is very well zoned. It is R8B. It's a very good zoning. What was wrong was not with the zoning, it was the action taking in destroying the zoning that created this horror that we're faced with.
I have to disagree.
I don't think there's anything.
I have to
there.
disagree.
Oh, I know.
I
sorry,
think that there was a problem with the perception that the city had. I listened to that entire city council meeting, the subcommittee meeting, where all the other members shot down Ben Callos because they had no respect for what we were proposing. And a lot of people throughout the city made fun of the Upper East Side. It wasn't about zoning. It was about making fun. It was about I can't even speak. It's too late. It had nothing to do with the zoning. It had to do with the PR. It had to do with people in the city feeling that our objections to shadows on the park were frivolous. It had to do with the perception that nobody wants low-income housing on the Upper East Side, affordable housing. There were things that caused the blood center objections to be overridden. And the same things apply to the zoning provision. It's not strictly a matter of the zoning. It's a matter of how we put it forth and how we do PR for it. And I'm sure there are other lessons to be learned from the whole zoning, from the whole blood center event, but I happened to think that the PR was, in retrospect, a little counterproductive. But we weren't going to discuss that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Elaine Walsh?
Thank you. I had trouble with getting my hand up. I was going to, under new business, bring up a concern around ULIP and the need for any zoning request of change needs to come to our committee first. We saw tonight, where it was an information session as of right, how much the community and board members wanted to have a discussion. And I think we need to look at this and make sure that the zoning changes, not where we're seeing a gym needing a variance, but for other pure zoning issues, that they come before us. But, you know, I think it's late to have any discussions. And if I'm permitted to, I'd like to move to close the meeting. What's the expression? I can't even remember it. To adjourn the meeting and take up the issues that Ms. Hanlon spoke on, looking at how we can deal with that. Although last month we did have a discussion, but I'd like to move, if there's a second, to adjourn the meeting. There's a second from Sharon.
Yes, I second.
And Michelle. Thank you.
I think we're going.
Yep, we're all tired. Okay, those in favor of adjourning or whatever?
Is there a motion? Is the motion on the floor?
Yes, it is, and it was seconded.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, raise your paw. Is that everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much, and don't die of starvation. and we'll see you next month.
How do I get this down? Oh, here it is. Leave.
The meeting is adjourned.